On the first date, what were some immediate red flags that made you not go on a second date? Met a stranger at the grocery store, and he asked me out for dinner. Dinner didn't go very well. He spent most of the date insulting me for being a vegetarian, and at the end of the night when we were walking back to our cars and saying bye, he asked if he could have a kiss. I said no. He asked again. I said no. He said how about a peck on the cheek, so I go to do that and he turns and kisses my mouth quickly. Definitely knew there would be no second date after that. I ignored all future texts. His last one said, "Why does this always happen to me?" Not entirely red flags, but just some small world things that made that first date the last one. For context, before the date, I picked him up. He was in a wheelchair. He lost his leg in a motorcycle accident a few years back and had recently had surgery on his leg because of bone spurs. He normally has a prosthetic. We went out for breakfast. Everything seemed fine, no major issues with him. When it came time to pay, his card was declined. He called his dad, who was also his boss, to figure out why his paycheck hadn't been deposited. Conversation went back and forth and I ended up paying and he promised to pay me back. It totally wasn't a big deal, it happens, I get it. So we get back to my car and he made a comment about the last time he was around a RAV4 it was his motorcycle accident. He hit into one that was pulling out of a restaurant and that's when he lost his leg. For some reason that triggered a memory of a conversation I had with my mom a while back about my aunt who had the same car which was totaled during an accident. I was texting him and asked him a few more questions about the accident, where it happened and such. Long story short, it was my aunt who was driving the car that pulled out of the restaurant and he hit into. He was currently in the process of suing her because of it, despite the fact that he was going almost double the speed limit at the time and didn't even have his license. Needless to say, there was no second date, and he never did pay me back for breakfast. I went on a date with a guy years ago. We were in San Francisco walking around after an art show. He just littered. I said, "Oh, there's a trash can right over there," and he just said, "So what?" and chuckled. Never saw that guy again, lol. She and I were sitting in a club when a guy she knew walked by and waved. He said, "Hi, Kate. Haven't seen you in a while," and walked on. She yelled after him, "Yeah, but do you think about me when you jack off?" The whole club came to a record scratch halt and stared at her. Then, fearing the people on the street out front hadn't heard her, she repeated, "I said, do you think about me when you jack off?" I made it an early night. Another great one, I went on a date with a Korean American guy in college. It was really lovely. Until his mother called during our coffee date. She asked him what my name was and he told her, first and last. He got a sad look on his face and stood up, apologizing profusely for wasting my time. He said, "I am so sorry, I should have had her look you up before the date." Super confused, I looked at him and asked, "What are you talking about?" Apparently he didn't realize my name was Japanese American. I am biracial but white passing, and his mother saw my Facebook PFP at the time was me and my family at the Obon festival hosted by the Buddhist Temple and Japanese American Society in my city. So he left the date because his mommy told him he couldn't date a Japanese girl. I told her I had a dog. She said, "Oh, neat. What breed?" I told her, "Siberian Husky." "Oh. A big dog? At least she'll die young so you can get a puppy again soon." I'm an alcoholic. At the time I had been sober for 5 years or so. The entire time she just kept trying to nag me about it to try and get me to drink. It was really weird. I didn't see her again, and then on Valentine's Day she sent me a long message asking how I could reject her like that. Overall very uncomfortable. Explained everything to me like I had just arrived on the planet, explained how exchange rates work, explained how package holidays work, explained parking, explained that it's cheaper to have roommates, learned so much lol. He called the waitress a fucking stupid cunt for forgetting that he wanted his shot chilled. His lunch was absolutely all over his face and hands. Everywhere. He also got up thrice from the table to go to the bathroom but came back messy each time. Pulled out a loaded gun in my car to try and impress me. Edit, holy fuck, this blew up. I'll answer a few questions I saw a lot. It was Georgia, blind date set up by a friend. He was a corrections officer. I should not have let him in my car on a first date, that was just stupid. We were talking and he randomly asked what my stance on guns was. I hesitated, then he goes I'm a Smith & Wesson fan, myself, and pulled out a handgun which was loaded. I freaked out and told him to put that away, which he did, thank fuck. Needless to say, it was probably my most awkward first date and there was no second date lol. I had coffee with someone I met off a dating app and he starts going on about how he has a domestic violence charge with his ex and began explaining how it wasn't his fault and they were abusing meth at the time. The more he explained, the worse it sounded. I thanked him for the coffee and said I had to get going. I got a message later that day from him saying, I fucked that up, didn't I? I didn't respond. Part 1. I was 24 years old. He came to the door to pick me up, and he was carrying something. It wasn't flowers. It was a Bratz doll. An actual Bratz doll in the box, brand new, like he actually went to the store and made a conscious decision to buy it for 24-year-old me. He was 32. I thought you'd like this, he said. Dead serious. Did he want me to act younger? I don't know, but he creeped me out. Whole date was weird. Part 2. The day after, he kept calling while I was at the grocery store, and I don't like to talk on the phone while I'm shopping. I called him back, dumb. He asked why I was ignoring his calls and I told him the truth that I had been shopping and I preferred to be able to interact with the people I needed to speak to, deli person, etc., without being on the phone. He got upset and was mad/sad about how it wasn't fair that the grocery store workers got that much of my time and attention, but he didn't. Flushed face, that was the end of that. Went out with a girl, we hit it off well to the point that things heated up and I spent the night at her place, only to wake up to an empty house and no clothes. She had taken all of my clothes, including my underwear, with her to work. The rest of the story is requested. https://www.reddit.com/r/ask-reddit/comment/on_the_score the_red/issue4f medium equals android_app and source equals share and context equals 3. Made multiple comments about my appearance, to be fair they were positive, but delivered in a very creepy and shallow way. He also told me about how he was arrested in front of his old apartment and then evicted. After I told him I did not wish to go on a second date, his response was, okay, but first I really want to fuck your brains out. This was a first date and I was 19. Some comments include, I bet you work out. I bet you look at the mirror and just think damn. Etc. If I were you, I'd check myself out all the time. One guy I reluctantly met up with once turned out to be a Nazi magician. He praised Hitler and denied the Holocaust, that was the conversation he opened with, and said immigrants shouldn't be allowed in the country anymore. This was bad enough without noting that I am an immigrant. And so was he. He then proceeded to bend a spoon with his mind and pressured me into solving an impossible riddle. All this in maybe an hour, which I had stayed for purely out of morbid curiosity. Then he said I wasn't what he was looking for, because I was too cold to be the future mother of his children. Yes, Nazi sympathizer, you are right, I felt very cold towards you. Then he asked if I wanted to come home with him. I'm still in disbelief. Texting and answering a phone call in the middle of dinner. Person on the phone asked what he was doing and he responded saying not much. He turned up 30 minutes late and was hammered. Drunk, then informed me that he drove to the date, which was a 20-minute drive from where he had been. Talking to her imaginary friend. Her friend was a great conversationalist. As for her, no way, dull and as interesting as a doorknob. Old worn-out t-shirt. Sweaty. Brought his dog along. The dog wouldn't look at me when I tried to make friends, only looked at his master. He was a cell phone tower tech. Decided he could psychoanalyze me. Told me I'm afraid of men, despite me meeting him in a state park. Told me he's tired of having steak dinners and ice cream and still not getting a relationship out of it, so from now on, he's going for sex first. Told me I have a lot to think about. Nope, dude, didn't have to think it over at all. His profile said he didn't like organized religion. On our date he told me he belonged to some religious faith following a guru, Osho, in India. And he went to India a couple of times. Then he told me his wife passed away 6 weeks ago. He asked if he could call me. I said yes, thinking you can call, I'm not going to answer. He never called, LOL. He invited his brother. And after many times of telling him I was underage for drinking, kept trying to get me to go drink with them. We did go pants shopping for his brother though. When the gal I was taking out on first date explicitly said, I expect anyone I date to buy me things. Not like flowers, but go to the mall and literally buy her all sorts of stuff. And get this, she was a psychologist. I shudder to think of someone using her in her professional capacity. I have had a second gal I dated for a couple months, so not a first date, that was similar to this one. 4 months in she tells me she won't be with anyone who makes less than $100,000, this was about 2009 so inflation she is probably at $150,000. Could not believe my ears. I was a scientist so I said, if we were married, and I lost my biotech job and took an academic position as a professor, but made $75,000, you would leave me? Yes was her response. Dumped her that day. He wanted to know where I lived, my exact address. And he wouldn't drop it when I gave him general answers. Met a guy on an app. Talked for a while. Met up for drinks and I was asking him about his Dexter tattoo. He had Michael C. Hall's face on his shoulder, and he said that what he liked most about Dexter was that he hid his true identity. Needless to say, I never saw him again. Tried to show off his dumb Honda by speeding recklessly through a residential neighborhood with me in the passenger seat. As soon as I was able to calmly get him to stop driving, I got out and walked myself to a Wawa and waited for a friend to pick me up. What a tool. One date in particular comes to mind. This guy I knew through a mutual friend kept asking if he could take me for dinner. I always politely turned him down because I'd just come out of a relationship and wasn't looking to jump into another, but my friend convinced me that I should try and get back out there and enjoy myself. The next time I ran into him he asked if he could take me out again, so I relented and agreed. The date went fine for the most part, a few awkward moments here and there but nothing that made me want to call it a night. Then we get to the bill, he paid on his card and then told me don't worry I've got you covered, you can pay me back for your half when we get back to my place and made a winking gesture at me. Needless to say there was no second date, and he made the journey back to his place alone.